Breaking news, the latest from the SPC has just come in, and we're under an enhanced risk for parts of Arkansas. In fact, we have 3 days of an enhanced risk in a row. Hello, I'm Pat from Pat's Path Predictor, and let's dive right into this. Alright, so this is the situation right here. We have an enhanced risk issued for eastern Oklahoma and parts of Arkansas, including Little Rock. We have a slight risk for parts of southern Missouri into Texas, all the way to Tennessee. And we have a marginal risk from Texas to Kentucky to Indiana to Tennessee to Mississippi. We have generic thunderstorms everywhere else. Now, we're going to go ahead and talk about the risks, because the wind threat is actually the lowest threat right here, based on the fact that there's only a 15% risk for these areas within 25 miles, so 0.5% here. The next biggest threat is probably the tornado threat, actually. There's a 10% risk within 25 miles of a point of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes happening in this hatched area right here in parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, including Little Rock. 5% here, 2% here, and down all the way down to Texas. The biggest threat that we are seeing is the hail threat. There is a 30% risk of hail that is 2 inches in diameter or greater within 25 miles of a point in this area in Oklahoma and Arkansas. We're at 15% with that hatched area, all the way down to Dallas and Waco, because why not Dallas? You know what I mean? Dallas always gets these things, so yeah, that's basically the situation. The regular 15% encompasses the rest of this area. Okay, this just updated. This area including Memphis, so yeah, the 5% goes all the way down to Texas into southern Illinois. So let's go ahead and read the synopsis real quickly. So the summary: isolated to scattered severe thunderstorms are expected later this afternoon into the early tonight for parts of northeastern Texas to the Ozarks and Mid-South, with the greatest threat expected over parts of eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas. Very large hail, damaging winds, and a strong tornado or two all appear possible. Eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas. The latest GOES 16 imagery shows that signs of decreasing inhabitation across northeast Texas into eastern Oklahoma. Deepening congestus, increasing echotops, and a few lightning strikes are noted across eastern Oklahoma along the stationary boundary, possibly indicating the early signs of sustained surface-based convection initiation. These trends are expected to continue through the late afternoon as inhabitation continues to wane and instability increases to nearly 2,500 joules of kilogram of CAPE and increasing cloud breaks. We're actually seeing values above that in some models. For example, the HER model, this is the 18Z run right here. That was from about 1 o'clock this afternoon. We could see the CAPE up to 3,000 to 4,000 in some areas. Let me show you. Like up in Texas, we could see some CAPE values of up to over 4,000 right here. In fact, the CAPE, this is the best shot right here. Yeah, potentially, yeah, over 4,300 joules per kilogram of CAPE. We could see up to that. On average, we're seeing about 3,000 to 2 to 3,000, potentially up 2 to 3,500 right here. So, yeah, that's the situation we're dealing with. This is the CAPE we're going to show you continuing through tomorrow. It expands more into Oklahoma and Arkansas, all the way to Kansas and Missouri. Then the CAPE starts cracking 3,000 in a lot of areas. Like, look at all of this. The CAPE is over 3,000 joules per kilogram from Dallas all the way up to the Kansas, Nebraska area. And it's quite normal for these areas to crack 3,500 in these parts right here. And then this thing wanes down, and the CAPE moves more to the east, which is to be expected. We'll have to wait for later model runs to confirm this. Nevertheless, this is the situation we have right here. So, yeah. This is the line with the latest guidance, which shows thunderstorms increasing in coverage after 21 UTC across eastern Oklahoma into central Arkansas. See MCD 447 for additional details. Small changes are made into the enhanced risk to better capture the northward extent of the developing thunderstorms along the stationary boundary, but overall forecast remains on track. The previous discussion was from 11:20 a.m. We're not going to read that. This is the updated stuff we have right here. We're going to go ahead and so that's the breaking news we have right here. We're going to go ahead and go to the Day 2 outlook, because there is some new updates right here. The enhanced risk goes all the way from the Iowa-Minnesota border all the way down to near Austin, Texas. That's how large this is. And there is CAPE of 3,000 to almost 3 to 4,000 joules per kilogram in that southern part of the area. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. So this is the summary and synopsis. There's an enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms across the central South Plains into the mid-Missouri Valley. Summary: scattered severe thunderstorms capable of producing very large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes should occur beginning late Tuesday afternoon and continuing through Tuesday night across a broad portion of the southern central plains into the Mississippi Valley. Some tornadoes could be strong, and so let's go ahead and look at the risks. The tornado threat: there's a 10% risk of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of point in parts of Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri. This area up here, 5% everywhere else, and 2% all the way here. The wind threat it's also concentrated in that area. It's a 30% risk, which is in the same area as that tornado risk right here. But then the hail threat is the largest threat once again, and this is why. There is a 30% risk. This is encompassing the entire enhanced risk area. There is a 30% risk from the Minnesota-Iowa border all the way down to Austin, Texas. It's not just 30%. The entire 30% area is in that hatched risk, which means we are seeing potentially 2-inch diameter hail or more within 25 miles of a point. 15% has some of that. But yeah, it goes all the way close to St. Louis it goes all the way from La Crosse, Wisconsin, all the way down to the Gulf, that 15% area right there. And that's basically what we're looking at. That's the risks we're seeing with this stuff. Summaries. Okay, we already saw that. Synopsis. An upper-level trough currently moving through onshore across the Pacific Northwest is forecast to deepen over the next 24 hours as it shifts into the inner mountain west. As the southern stream perturbation is depicted over the latest guidance traversing the southern plains into the Texarkana region in the early evening. At the surface, a consolidating cyclone in the high plains will deepen as it shifts into the northern plains. A stationary boundary across the southern continental United States will rapidly mix northward into the response to the deepening low, establishing a broad warm sector from the northern west Gulf Coast into the central plains and central parts of the Midwest by early afternoon. A sharpening dry line along the draped south through the plains will be overtaken by a cold front through the evening and overnight hours. So not only are we seeing a lot of CAPE with this coming in, we're seeing a lot of warm air, like a warm air advection, that's what it's called. That's when a lot of warm air is funneling through. That's what we're seeing in the Great Plains, just for some context. This is the Central Plains. Thunderstorm initiation appears likely across the Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa tri-state region by mid to late afternoon in the vicinity of the Triple Point and along the dry line. Along the boundary layer, moisture should be modest compared to locations further south. Steep lapse rates, aloft will support adequate buoyancy for mature convection. Forecast soundings across the region will show interrogated hydrographs with ample veering at the lowest 3 kilometers. This kinetic environment will support supercells given the storm motion vectors off the initiating boundary. All hazards are possible, including the potential for a strong tornadoes forecast. ESRH, values between 250 to 300 meters per second squared, meters squared per second squared. So yeah, that's the situation. A transition to preliminary linear storm mode, along with increasing wind threat, is expected by the evening hours when the cold front overtakes the dry line into southeast Nebraska and northwest Kansas. Strong low-level shear ahead of the line will maintain this potential for embedded circulations as it shifts into southern Iowa and northwest Missouri overnight. Eastern Kansas into central Oklahoma. A severe weather threat appears conditional for tomorrow afternoon across parts of the eastern Kansas and central eastern Oklahoma. The latest solutions struggle to show how a strong convective signal along the dry line, which is likely due to a combination of factors. The stronger synoptic forcing of an ascent will be displaced well into the north across the central and to northern plains in weak substance behind a southern stream upper trough may overspread the region by peak heating. Despite this, some solutions hint at given sufficient daytime heating behind the wave, convergence along the dry line may be adequate for a few isolated cells within a minimally capped environment. The thermodynamic kinetic environment across the Oklahoma, Kansas will be supportive of supercells that convection can develop. While this potential is noted, uncertainty is too high to warrant a 10% tornado probability at this time. North central Texas into Arkansas and Louisiana. The southern shortwave trough is expected to move over central Texas into western Louisiana during the afternoon hours. This broad-scale ascent will bolster adjacent lift at the low-level warm, moist advection over East Texas into western Arkansas and Louisiana. Limited inhibition in place should result in quasi-discrete cells to storm clusters across the region. A few of these may be sufficiently organized to support a wind-hail risk, and a low-level velocity within the warm advection regime will support a low-end tornado risk. The severe potential should be regionally maximized across central Texas, where storms developing along the dry line behind the leading wave will likely move more isolated and have a higher probability of maintaining discrete modes. So, Day 2, that's the situation we have. So, up in Iowa, so the tornado risk is much higher up in Iowa. Okay. So, the tornado threat is higher up in the Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri area because the conditions are more favorable up there for those tornadoes. There's basically better ingredients for that than down in Oklahoma, Texas. The hail threat is also higher for those reasons that we saw in the synopsis. Now, I want to show you this. This is the Day 3 outlook right here. And this right here, this was issued, the first one here, and it expands all the way up to near Chicago. It goes all the way from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way up to Lake and Porter County in Indiana. That's the situation we're dealing with. And look at the probabilistic. There is a 30% risk in this entire area of significantly severe weather. What that means is that there is a 30% probability of significant severe, which is like 2-inch hail, greater tornado risk, as well as a more damaging winds within 25 miles of a point. That includes Little Rock, Memphis, Jackson, Greenville, Jackson, Mississippi, Shreveport, St. Louis, Evansville, and the 30% expands into Springfield, Illinois, Peoria, and Indianapolis. So, yeah, and I also want to bring up the 15. This goes all the way from Wisconsin all the way to the Gulf. That's how large this is. And when we get into the synopsis, we'll explain what's going on. Enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms. Okay. Summary. Scattered to numerous severe thunderstorms appear likely across a large portion of the lower to mid-Mississippi Valley and into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Southeast on Wednesday. Large to very large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes are all possible. Strong tornadoes may occur. Synopsis. An upper trough or /low will continue to eject eastward from the plains across much of the Mississippi Valley, Midwest, and Great Lakes regions on Wednesday. A surface low is likewise expected to advance generally eastward across the upper Midwest Great Lakes through this period. A trailing cold front will sweep eastward Wednesday across much of the Mississippi and Ohio valleys and southeast as well. Mississippi valleys and Ohio Valley in the Midwest, into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Southeast. A substantial severe threat is evident for large parts of these regions ahead of the cold front. Pronounced large-scale ascent associated with the negatively tilted upper trough will likely overspread the warm sector throughout the day. The 60s surface dew points will be present ahead of the front, with greater low-level moisture likely in place in the lower Ohio Valley to the mid-south, into the lower Mississippi Valley and southeast. Diurnal heating in this air mass will and the continued presence of steepened lapse rates aloft should allow for moderate to strong instability to develop by Wednesday afternoon. Deep layer shear, generally in excess of 45 to 50 knots, will support organizing severe thunderstorms, and low-level shear is also forecast to be quite strong. Prefrontal convection appears possible across parts of the Mid-South and lower Mississippi Valley vicinity throughout the day. If this occurs, then supercells posing a threat of all severe hazards, including strong tornadoes, will be likely. Linear convection is also expected to develop along much of the length of the front. This activity will pose a threat for both damaging winds and QSLCS tornadoes as it spreads eastward Wednesday afternoon and evening. Having opted to include a broad enhanced risk for the numerous and potentially widespread damaging winds and strong tornadoes, The main uncertainty precluding the greater severe probabilities, at this time are the possible effect of early day convection across the lower Mississippi Valley and Mid-South of prospects of substantial destabilization later in the afternoon. Given the strong flow and sufficient instability forecast, at least an isolated severe threat should continue in the extent across the Ohio, Tennessee, and valleys, as well as the southeast Wednesday night. So, yeah, this is the situation we're dealing with right now, and we are looking at a 3-day severe weather outbreak right here, and this is the day one, and this is what I'm paying attention to today because of all that CAPE, as well as the threat for very large hail and tornadoes. With tomorrow, and same with day 3. If I'm going to be real, I'm not going to be surprised if they issue a moderate risk for day 3, and that's because the environment, because of how large the enhanced risk is, as well as how conducive the environment is as well. But only time will tell when we see that. Until that time, I'll keep you guys updated as the situation develops. But until then, it's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps me out and helps me make more videos like these, and it also helps inform more of the public about what's going on with these storms. And with that being said, guys, have a wonderful day. Stay safe.